pull up a stool. Yeah, right there. It's good. Keep your coat on if you want, but you're going to want to hear
I'll
this.
get a glass for you. Settle in.
Thanks. Because I'm looking at your corporate badge there hanging around your neck. You look like someone who, thinks they know how a hostile takeover works.
Most people do. They think it's all tense Zoom calls and lawyers.
Exactly. Lawyers in those ridiculously expensive suits arguing over valuation, or maybe like a passive-aggressive email chain that mysteriously gets leaked to the press.
Right.
But what if I told you the greatest corporate hostile takeover in history didn't involve spreadsheets or boardrooms? What if it involved a warlord, a displaced emperor, and a completely incinerated grain silo in ancient China? Would you even believe me?
It sounds a bit extreme for standard corporate strategy.
Oh, it is. Tonight we're doing a deep dive into the Battle of Guandu. And the mission here, for you sitting across the bar, is to show you how a smart, highly agile startup can just completely dismantle a monolithic, bureaucratic conglomerate purely through organizational efficiency and ruthless decision-making speed.
It's a fascinating case study. Let's set the stage first, just to give you some context. We are looking at the aftermath of the collapse of what we'll call the Han Group.
The ultimate monopoly.
Exactly. For centuries, this sprawling enterprise held an absolute monopoly on the Central Plains. But over time, the infrastructure rotted. And when that happens, a power vacuum opens up. And honestly, the most dangerous thing in any market is a power vacuum.
It's blood in the water. The Han Group just flatlined. The former chairman, this absolute tyrant named Dong Zhuo, was ousted. I mean, the stock price hit zero, the board scattered to the wind, and all the company's main assets were just sitting there up for grabs.
Which is where the chaos usually starts.
Right. But before we talk about who actually, cornered that market, we need to look at how not to run a company. We have to examine the previous regime's catastrophic implosion. We got to talk about Dong Zhuo and his right-hand man, Lu Bu. I look at this as the ultimate cautionary tale of toxic management.
Because it was a system built entirely on intimidation rather than actual governance.
Yes. Dong Zhuo was the ultimate nouveau riche boss. You know the type. The guy who buys the company in a leveraged buyout, kicks the boardroom doors open, and just rules by pure, unadulterated fear.
And his primary tool for enforcing that fear was Lu Bu.
Exactly. Now, in the historical texts, Lu Bu is described as this unmatched combat machine. But in our modern corporate translation, Lu Bu is your top-performing sales director. He's the rainmaker.
Guy bringing in, what, 90% of the revenue?
90% easily. And he knows he's untouchable. He acts as a personal enforcer for the CEO's fragile ego.
He's the quintessential toxic high performer. He genuinely believes standard operating procedures simply didn't apply to him, just because his raw output was so incredibly high.
But here, right here, is where the internal management completely fractures. It's this famous sequence of events called the chain scheme. So you have the tyrannical CEO, Dong Zhuo, and his arrogant star performer, Lu Bu. Into this literal powder keg walks Diaoshan.
Ah, the catalyst.
The ultimate catalyst. In corporate terms, Diaoshan is the highly coveted, top-tier brand ambassador. Both the CEO and the star salesman desperately want her exclusive attention to, elevate their own status in the industry.
We should probably clarify the mechanics of how this actually went down, though, because it wasn't just a spontaneous love triangle.
Oh, no, it was totally orchestrated.
Right. It was deliberate, engineered corporate sabotage by an insider named Wang Yin. He looked at Dong Zhuo's regime and saw that it was militarily unassailable from the outside. You couldn't just attack them.
So you hit them where it hurts.
Exactly. He targeted the structural vulnerability, the ego of the leadership. So Wang Yin privately promises Dao Chan to Lu Bu first, and then he immediately turns around and gifts her to Dong Zhuo.
I mean, it is the ultimate HR disaster. You have a third-party executive intentionally feeding completely contradictory promises to the C-suite in your top earner.
By creating an unresolvable conflict of honor, Wang Yin basically weaponized their lack of mutual trust. Dong Zhuo thought, well, his authority as the boss meant he could take whatever he wanted.
And Lu Bu felt his unparalleled performance entitled him to the prize.
So they completely turn on each other.
The salesman, Lu Bu, permanently fires the boss. I mean, he literally decapitates him. So I have to ask you, sitting right there across the bar, holding your drink, you're managing top talent, how do you prevent your star performer from executing a hostile internal coup?
Well, you build actual corporate governance. The historical reality of Dong Zhuo's failure is that he relied entirely on raw aggression.
Yeah.
When an organization lacks formal structure, clear succession plans, and, basic trust, its greatest asset inherently becomes its biggest liability.
Loaded gun with no safety.
Precisely. Lu Bu was a lethal weapon. But without a functional organizational framework to direct that weapon, he just swung backward and eliminated the leadership. Talent without management is just chaos waiting to happen.
It's a mess. So the chairman is gone, the Han Group is in ashes, the market is in absolute Lord of the Flies chaos at this point.
Every mid-level manager with a budget is suddenly declaring themselves a CEO.
Right. They're printing their own business cards, bleeding cash just to look legitimate. So how do you actually stand out in that noise? Cal, our main protagonist, and honestly the founder who actually understands how the modern game is played, he realizes something brilliant.
While everyone else is out there buying up office space and hiring mercenaries,
Cal makes the most visionary seed round investment in history.
he locates the wandering, displaced emperor of the fallen Han group, and he just invites him to relocate to his own territory, Xuchang.
He gives the emperor a desk, a fancy title, and puts him on the payroll. Now keep in mind, the emperor has zero operational power here. He has no army. To me, the emperor is basically an expired classic trademark.
A legacy logo.
Exactly, a walking legacy logo.
Mm-hmm.
But Cao brings him in-house to secure the sole official licensing rights from HQ.
I wouldn't call the emperor totally expired, though. I mean, that kind of minimizes the geopolitical reality of the time.
Fair.
The cultural reverence for the Han dynasty wasn't just some legal loophole they exploited. It was a deeply held societal belief. It was the bedrock of legitimacy for 400 years. By holding the emperor, Cao didn't just get a logo, he gained the actual power to issue imperial edicts.
Which completely changes the vocabulary of the industry. Think about it. Now, when Cao aggressively acquires a competitor's territory, it's not an attack. It's an authorized corporate audit.
He is acting on behalf of the crown.
Exactly. But when his competitors try to expand, suddenly they are engaged in an illegal assembly. They become rogue actors in the market. In a chaotic, oversaturated market, owning the narrative and controlling the top intellectual property that is the ultimate cheat code for PR and recruitment.
It fundamentally shifted the balance of power. Most of the other warlords, the competing CEOs, so to speak, they thought power was strictly a headcount metric.
How many troops can you field?
Right. How many acres do you control? But Cao recognized the supreme value of a brand monopoly. By securing that moral and legal high ground, his startup instantly became the most attractive destination for top-tier administrative and military talent.
Well, yeah, because if you're a highly skilled developer or like an elite manager, you want to work for the official government-backed entity.
They want stability.
You don't want to risk your career on some scrappy pirate ship that might get completely dismantled by the authorities tomorrow morning.
Precisely. Soft power and institutional legitimacy outmaneuvered brute force. Cao built a legally unassailable institution that gave every aggressive, expansionist move he made this pristine veneer of legality.
So Cao has the official branding. He has the momentum. He's the darling of the valley. But there is a downside to being the hottest startup in town.
You attract highly ambitious people.
Extremely ambitious.
Yeah.
And some of them might just want to replace you. Before Cao can go on this massive acquisition spree, he needs to do a vibe check on his own executive team. How do you vet your internal talent when literally everyone is flocking to your banner?
You conduct a threat assessment. And the historical texts give us a brilliant example of this in the famous Boiling Wine to discuss Hero's Incident.
Oh man, this is my absolute favorite piece of corporate psychology. I want you to imagine the most terrifying networking mixer of your entire life.
It really was.
So Cao invites a guy named Liu Bei over for a private drink. Now, Liu Bei is currently taking refuge at Cao's company. He has no territory, no massive budget, but he has this enormous reputation in the industry.
He started out weaving straw sandals and built his brand from nothing. People genuinely respect him.
To use your corporate framing, Liu Bei wasn't just some low-level employee.
No, he was a founder in residence. Warlords in this era frequently sought temporary asylum with rivals when their own territories were overrun. They were basically waiting out the non-compete clause, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it.
Cao knew Liu Bei had the pedigree and the ambition of a CEO, even if he lacked the capital at that exact moment.
So they're boiling some plum wine, just the two of them. A private one-on-one. The weather's getting nasty outside, getting dark. And Cao, very casually, decides to test him. The industry giant leans over, clinks glasses with the resident founder, looks out at the world and just says, "You know, the only true heroes in this world are you and me."
It was a direct, lethal challenge masquerading as a compliment.
Let that sink in for a second. The CEO of the most powerful company in the region just looked at you, a guy crashing on his couch, and basically said, I know you're my only real peer. I know you're going to steal my market share one day. If you're Liu Bei, what is your next move?
It's a trap.
It's a total trap. If you agree and say, thanks, man, I am a hero,
Yeah.
he perceives you as an immediate threat and eliminates you right there. But if you argue too aggressively against it, you look like a liar hiding some master plan.
Liu Bei needed an out that didn't rely on verbal debate. Cao Cao would have seen through any argument instantly.
Right, as a massive crack of thunder hits outside, Liu Bei deliberately drops his chopsticks. He dives back, visibly trembling, and just pretends to be absolutely terrified of the thunder.
He plays dumb.
He pretends he is a complete, utter coward who can't even handle some bad weather.
And it worked. By demonstrating extreme, almost pathetic vulnerability, he deflated Cao Cao's suspicion.
Because Cao Cao was actively testing for ambition.
Right. He figured a true world-conquering hero wouldn't cower at a loud noise. Liu Bei survived because he was a master at reading the room and managing up during a highly hostile evaluation. He understood that in that specific moment, manifesting any ego was a death sentence. Feigning weakness was just a calculated survival tactic.
The ultimate play dead until the bear walks away strategy.
Yeah.
And Liu Bei survives the mixer. He sneaks out the back door a few months later, takes a nice severance package of troops, and launches his own rival firm.
But for the moment, Cao Cao's internal house is clean.
The vibe check is complete. Now he is finally ready for the main event, the hostile takeover for the entire northern market, the Battle of Guandu.
This is where organizational efficiency is pushed to its absolute breaking point. Because on paper, mathematically, Cao Cao should have been eradicated.
There is not a chance he survives this on paper.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to his biggest rival, Yuan Shao. If Cao Cao is the scrappy, brilliant founder who built his organization's culture from the ground up, Yuan Shao is a fourth-generation legacy aristocrat.
The old money of the Han era.
Exactly. He comes from this elite, established family that has placed officials in top government roles for decades. He has the absolute best pedigree. And his workforce. His army is roughly 10 times the size of Cao Cao's. 10 to 1.
It was an overwhelming discrepancy in resources and headcount. Yuan Shao marched south with over 100,000 troops, fully intending to crush Cao Cao's operation purely through scale.
But Yuan Shao's camp is the epitome of a bloated, traditional, rigid state enterprise. His managers are constantly infighting. Every single decision takes a week. It's just an endless cycle of, let's circle back on that, and we need to align with key stakeholders before we deploy these troops.
We need to look at why that infighting happened, though, because it wasn't just your typical middle management fiction. Yuan Shao's army was a fragile coalition of competing aristocratic families.
Oh, so everyone had an ulterior motive.
Precisely. If one general proposed a bold attack and failed, his entire family lost political standing at court. If he succeeded, his family gained power at the expense of the others.
So they were actively rooting against each other.
Right. Consequently, his advisors were constantly sabotaging each other's plans just to protect their own political equity. The bureaucracy was entirely paralyzing.
It's the ultimate clash agile startup management versus legacy corporate bloat. They meet at Guandu, and it just turns into a grueling deadlock. Cao Cao can't win a traditional war of attrition. He doesn't have the runway. His burn rate on supplies is way too high.
The siege tactics used before the climax were actually fascinating. Yuan Shao built massive earthen mounds to fire arrows down into Cao Cao's camp.
And Cao Cao responds immediately.
He rapidly engineered new trebuchets to smash those archer towers. Yuan Shao tried tunneling under the defenses. Cao Cao dug horizontal trenches to intercept them. It was a technological and tactical stalemate.
But time was on Yuan Shao's side. Cao Cao is running out of food. He needs to disrupt the legacy giant supply chain. He needs a massive pivot.
Which brings us to the legendary strike on Wukao.
Wukao was Yuan Shao's centralized storage facility for all his grain and military supplies. In modern corporate terms, this is his main data center.
The central hub.
It's his primary server room. Every single operation runs through the Wukao depot. So what does the Agile founder do? While Yuan Shao is stuck in a committee meeting trying to get consensus on some minor troop movement, Cao Cao personally leads a highly mobile special forces team.
They bypass the front lines entirely.
It was a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. Cao Cao took about 5,000 elite cavalry, disguised them using captured banners and uniforms from Yuan Shao's army, and just marched right through the night.
And when they were challenged by checkpoints, they just claimed they were reinforcements sent by Yuan Shao himself to protect the grain.
They social engineered their way in. They bypassed the bloated security apparatus simply by exploiting its lack of cross-departmental communication.
They walked right past the guards, got to the server room, and they burned the Wukao warehouse to the ground.
They completely destroy the infrastructure.
The cascading failure from that single point of attack is hard to overstate. You have to understand the logistics of ancient warfare. 100,000 troops consume tons of grain daily. Without a mechanized supply chain, all that food has to be centralized.
Right, people gotta eat.
Wu Chao wasn't just a warehouse, it was literally the only thing preventing 100,000 armed men from turning on their own commanders.
So what does this actually mean for the modern professional? Isn't it true that in business, being massive is actually a terminal illness if you can't pivot quickly?
The historical record shows exactly that. Yuan Shao's monolithic operation collapsed almost overnight. Because his army was so large, the moment the food was gone, the sheer scale of his workforce amplified the panic.
More people, more problems.
10 times the soldiers meant 10 times the starvation, 10 times the rumors, and 10 times the mutiny. Speed, decisive action, and targeted disruption completely dismantled a legacy bureaucracy.
Cao Cao didn't even have to defeat 100,000 men in open combat. He just had to cut the cord that kept their bloated infrastructure running. It is a brutal, beautiful corporate maneuver.
And the fallout was absolute.
Yuan Shao's massive coalition just evaporates. The legacy company files for bankruptcy, and Cao Cao officially acquires the entire northern market. He consolidates all those assets, takes the territory, and becomes, without a doubt, the most powerful CEO in the region.
He established an agile dominance that defined the era. Though it is worth noting, even the most successful executives still encounter human resources challenges they simply cannot solve with logic.
Oh man, we have to talk about Guan Yu. It defies every rule of modern corporate retention.
It really does.
So during all this chaos, before the Battle of Guandu really kicked off, Cao Cao temporarily captured an employee named Guan Yu. Now, Guan Yu used to work for our chopstick-dropping friend Liu Bei, who had been completely scattered to the winds.
Right, his company was essentially defunct at that moment.
Defunct. But Cao Cao knows Guan Yu is a generational talent. He's a unicorn, so he offers him the absolute world to keep him on the payroll.
He showered him with wealth. The historical accounts say Cao Cao treated him with unprecedented respect. He gave him elite titles, a mansion, mountains of gold, and even gifted him the red hair.
The most famous high-performance horse of the era, it was the ultimate executive compensation package. Top-tier benefits, the corner office, massive stock options. And Guan Yu accepts the hospitality for a bit. He even does some consulting work for Cao Cao, killing a couple of enemy generals to pay off his debt.
But the very moment Guan Yu finds out his old boss, Liu Bei, is still alive,
He abandons the treasury. He just walks out. It's the famous historical event, riding alone for thousands of miles. Guan Yu leaves all the gold, seals up the mansion, takes his horse, and walks away from the highest salary in the industry to go back and work for Liu Bei.
a guy who, at this point, is basically operating out of a garage with zero market share.
Exactly. It proves that sometimes corporate culture and sheer personal loyalty completely defy financial incentives. Even Cao Cao, the master of the market, couldn't buy that kind of retention.
It's a humbling reminder that organizational culture often overrides strategy. You can possess the optimal intellectual property, the fastest decision-making apparatus, and literally all the capital in the North. But you cannot permanently engineer loyalty if the employee's core values align with a different founder.
Such a great point. But Cao Cao isn't the type to sit around and analyze an exit interview. He's looking at the map. He's got the North on lock. But down south, that market is still totally untapped.
And what he doesn't know is that there are 2 young founders down there waiting by a river.
Preparing to hand the northern boss a fiery surprise that will make the Wukao warehouse look like a campfire.
That campaign is definitely a discussion for another night. But if we take everything we've unpacked tonight, the systemic failure of fear-based management, the power of brand monopolies, the necessity of internal threat assessments, and the agile destruction of massive bureaucracies, and apply it to you, sitting right here at the bar, it leaves us with one critical question to evaluate.
Take a look at the bottom of your glass and think about your own workplace tomorrow morning. Really analyze the structure. Are you part of the Agile team, moving fast, breaking things, and identifying the structural weaknesses in your industry? Or are you sitting in a 5-hour alignment meeting right now, completely unaware that someone in a startup garage is currently sneaking around back, getting ready to blow up your server room?